Why'd they call them Niffin instead of Sniffin? They got a big nose. Can you please respond?
No.
Okay.
I'm not going to respond. All right, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about 10.1 gearing and upgrades and stuff.
Yeah.
Not talk about why they're not called Sniffin.
I swear it's a good name. Okay, so basically what's gone down this week is 10.1 has launched for anybody who has been paying attention. There's a couple of things that you need to be doing this week in preparation for next week, but that list is not extensive. We're going to be talking about the things that you should do, but I think that the big thing we're going to be covering this week and in this week's episode is what you should be looking to do next week with the flightstone system, with the crests system, that kind of thing, and how that's going to prepare you for gearing moving forward, kind of like what's changing and whatnot. I guess we can just take a crack at what you should be doing this week. And the answer is not a ton, but there is like one or two things that you should be looking to do.
Yeah, if you're playing a character that has, heroic raid gear or better from last patch, from 10.1 or 10.0 cycle, there's really not too much that you will benefit much by doing in the Zaralek Caverns and such.
Yes.
There's, even if you are heroic or even mythic geared, in theory, there's a couple of small upgrades you can maybe get your hands on, such as there's this do 5 heroic dungeons quest that you can do this week that can give you an item that upgrades to 424 this week if you want, and then potentially 437 next week, although we'll talk later about why you may not want to pull the trigger on that immediately next week. But this is something you can be doing this week.
Yeah.
But mostly the big thing to do this week is just get your Spark of Shadow Flame on your main character and any other characters you're trying to play a lot of in the first few weeks. And probably don't even spend that Spark yet. That Spark can make you a 424 now, but you probably, if you're trying to be like if you're going to be doing like 16 or higher keys or heroic or mythic raid early in the patch, probably hold on to that Spark until you have an enchanted Aspects Crest to upgrade.
Yes. So they changed sparks, and we've covered this. I think we covered this whenever the system for the crafted gear in like the update came out. But just to kind of reiterate, the Spark of Shadow Flame, you're going to be getting one every other week. Now, there does seem like there is some catch-up. Blizzard kind of had a clarification post. There's going to be some catch-up in regards to like doing things like dungeons and whatnot. So if you're a little bit behind, it's not going to be the end of the world. But you get one every other week, and it's from the Aiding the Accord style quest that's in the Niffin area. It's in like the hut, and you go and talk to them.
Worthy ally.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one that you're looking for, and that gets you the Spark of Shadow Flame. In addition to crafting Season 2 pieces, it also allows you to convert Season 1 crafted gear into Season 2 crafted gear. That's also another big deal. Beyond that, though, there's not a lot to do this week outside of just getting your characters those Sparks of Shadow Flame to make sure you're not behind in interacting with the catch-up system, because we don't really know a ton about the catch-up system. They said that it has a higher chance of dropping a Spark of Shadow Flame. A higher chance than what? 0? Like, I guess?
Yeah, they're one of those classic blue posts where you just get to have some English majors start reading through it to try and figure out what it actually means.
Yeah, but overall, not a ton to do right now. Now, in the future, and I think that this takes a degree to explain to people in advance, but once you actually start interacting with the system, it will make a lot of sense. But as it currently stands, I got my best man here on the job, maker of Google Sheets, Dratnos, to try to explain the item upgrade system.
Yeah, so basically items that drop for you from Season 2 content, including open world content, drop on these different upgrade tracks.
Yes.
There's the Explorer, which
right
is the lowest one, Adventurer, Veteran, Champion, and Hero. And basically the champion stuff drops mostly from heroic or from normal raid and from, mid-level keys. 9 to 16 keys, and the hero gear comes from the high keys, comes from heroic raid, and doesn't come from any outdoor world stuff. You can get a lot of the explorer and adventurer stuff from the outdoor world, and then a little bit of veteran and even some champion stuff from infrequent sources out in the not coming from raid and such.
Sure.
But the basic idea is that there are these different upgrade tracks, and items get upgraded along them using flightstones and crests. And flightstones I would say that if you need a simple way to think about flight stones, you can ignore them and be mostly fine. You're rarely it's pretty hard to ever run out of flight stones. And there's a lot of discounting systems, both actually there's an
Yeah, I mean, let's look
account-wide
at this.
discounting system with them as well, where basically if you're upgrading something that you already have better than in that slot, it's 60% less flight stones. And you can store 2,000 flight stones. You can earn 2,000 flight stones really quick. And then you'll need less than that to upgrade items. Unless you're trying to do multiple items all at once, in which case you may need to go farm some flight stones for a little bit. But flight stones, yeah, very cheap cost and have an account wide cost reduction. Crests, on the other hand, are the more limiting factor.
Correct.
These have a character based discount system, but not an account wide one. So if my character has 424 shoulders, upgrading shoulders all the way up to 424 is not going to cost any crests, but upgrading past 424 will, and upgrading on other characters up to 424 still will as well, but it will have the flight stone reduction. So crests are the kind of main, I would say, replacement for sort of the primal focus stuff that dropped from different keys, or like the score for valor upgrade requirement. And these drop from different kinds of content. So there's whelpling crests,
Yes.
which drop from LFR. They drop from low keys below 6, and they drop all over the place in the Zeralite Caverns. There's Drake's crests, which drop from normal raid. They drop from 6 to 10 keys. And they drop from, I think they drop from the rares in the Zeralite Caverns. You
Weekly
get,
events in the Zeralite Caverns.
Fragment. Yeah, the events. You can even buy fragments of them with those little coin things.
Yep, from Spinoza.
So Drakes and Whelplings, both very easy to get a bunch of your hands on. And again, if you have good gear already, most of your pieces, even coming into this patch for a mythic geared player, you can only ever use a couple of Whelplings and Drakes on because you already have most of that discount system unlocked. Worms and aspects aren't available yet this week. They'll
Correct.
be available starting the second week of the patch, the first week of the raid. And these come from heroic and mythic raid bosses, respectively, and from 11 to 15 or 16 plus keys, also respectively. And these are the kind of big power crests. This is where the weekly cap starts to matter, of you can only get 15 crests per week. Although you can circumvent that with one-time rewards, which I don't think there are any for that level of crest, but you can like downgrade your mythic crests to heroic crests, and that gets around the like 10 heroic crests per week cap. And that actually might be something that's worth doing, because one quirk of this upgrade system is that many items are going to require a lot of heroic crests to upgrade, but you only ever need one mythic crest to upgrade any item, because only that one step, 437 to 441, ever costs a mythic crest. So the mythic aspects crests, if you can get your hands on a bunch of them, if you can be doing those 16 or higher keys, are actually pretty likely to be something you're not going to run out of. Whereas those heroic crests, because many items are going to need 2, 3, or 4 of those to upgrade, you actually can run out of. And that has a couple of implications if you're trying to be a super min-maxy player.
Correct.
Yeah. Most players, most cases, you can't really get screwed. That's the nice thing about this system. With the discount system, it's pretty hard to get super screwed, and it's impossible to get screwed for more than a couple weeks.
I mean, I was going to say long term, there's no way to really get punished.
Yeah.
It's more of like if you really care about your week 2, your week 3 min max optimization, say you're a cutting edge level raider or something like that, there is a way that you mess this up. And typically it comes down to the fact that you are overspending the worm or the aspects crests, or you're not getting the maximum amount of worm or aspects crests that you possibly can get.
Yeah, which it's important to note that that weekly cap I was talking about is like cumulative. So if you only get 10, or if you only get 8 of your 10 crests week 1, you can then earn up to, you can get 12 in the next week.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you would be at. So that is even pretty hard to like screw yourself on. But like you were saying, yeah, if you waste worms or aspect crests, you can get owned a little bit. The thing is, because of that discount system, it is hard to like truly waste those crests, because even if you upgrade something that you kind of regret, you're at least giving yourself a discount later in that slot. And you know, it's unlikely to be that bad. But if you are going to be doing, if you can do like 19 or higher keys in the first few weeks, or mythic raid content in the first few weeks, then there is something you should do to be more efficient with worms crests, which is basically never upgrade between the eye level of 424 and 431. That is the
write that down.
zone that is inefficient. That's kind of the only thing that you can get a little bit owned on, because if you're upgrading from 424 all the way up, that's going to take you 4 heroic crests per item. But you can get the 431s out of your end of dungeon. And if you're upgrading from 431s, then you're only taking 2 heroic crests per item. So you can upgrade 5 items per week instead of 2.5. And that means that you'll be done in like 3 weeks instead of 5, using these Worms Crests to get all your gear upgraded as high as possible. So if you are going to be capable of doing those 19 and 20 keys in the first few weeks, then you should avoid upgrading only in the band of 424 to 431. Anything else is fine. Up to 424 is fine. Above 431 is fine. But that specific band is an inefficiency for the hyper min-max players. And the other thing that is a bait is the Enchanted Worms aspect crest.
The crafted one, right?
Yeah, how it interacts with the crafting system. Basically, you can use 3 Worms crests.
I found it right here.
Or 4 aspect crests. I'm pretty sure the number is 3 on the Worms crest, and that article may be a little out of date. I think it's 3, but could be wrong, I guess. To make an enchanted crest that lets you. This is basically the new Primal Infusion, and basically, because the Worms crests are likely to be in higher demand than the aspect crest, of course you can downgrade your aspect crest to Worms crest if you want. But because those Worms crests are likely to be in high demand, it just doesn't make much sense to use some of them to make your crafted piece 437 if you're going to be able to get your hands on the aspect crest, which make your crafted piece 447 instead. That's just much better. Only if you can get the aspect crest in these first few weeks. But honestly, even if you can't, you probably should still be using your first several weeks worth of Worms crests on upgrading gear rather than making an enchanted crest.
And just looking at it from like a wide angle, not only is this just something that interacts with the crafting system, this is something that interacts with pretty much all gear. So if, say, you get the class trinket from the raid on heroic, we can upgrade this up to mythic item level.
The class trinket actually drops above the heroic class trinket drops at 444, so it's actually already above the upgrade system.
So so it's already above the upgrade system. But say you get tier, a heroic tier, then we can upgrade that to mythic quality tier, and that just works for mythic plus end of dungeon rewards, and that's why Dratnos was so heavily iterating like the 19 is the cutoff for like the track if you're like hyper min maxing. So it's just something that interacts with the crafted system, it interacts with Mythic Plus, and it interacts with all raid difficulties, except for Mythic, but interacts with a lot of the early raid difficulties. And so I think that let's take like a wide angle and be like, let's start at the bottom, the things that you should likely do, and then we'll end up at the top, that the things that are like the most min-maxy players should do. First and foremost, things you should do, get your Spark. I think that that's like lowest level of thing to do. Second level, I would say try to get the Worm Shadow Crest, Shadow Flame Crests. I think that this should be doable for a lot of players, especially if you're doing anything above a 20 this season, you should be able to do 11 to 15s next season, just from what the dungeons look like from PTR testing.
It should feel, I think a good baseline rule of thumb here is that whatever keys you could do first week of Dragonflight, you can probably do a couple levels higher the first week.
I would say 2 to 3, yeah. Then try to get the Aspect Shadow Flame Crests. Obviously, I think that the worms, like you were stating, are going to be one of the biggest limiting factors, the biggest bottleneck of the whole entire system. But getting the Aspect Shadow Flame Crests is then next. Do 19s for end of dungeon rewards. I think
20 is best as well for Vault. But there's value at every step up along the key level.
Correct.
So
I would do
the
highest
you can do it's always good.
Yeah.
I would say, a lot of the min-max we've been talking about as well is assuming you're going to hit your weekly cap. But if you're not going to hit your weekly cap, or if you're, not going to be doing these super high keys, in general, just use these crests as you get them to upgrade your gear and upgrade weapons, chest pieces, shoulders, legs, these trinkets, these kind of tier, these high value slots. Those are the best places to upgrade. And don't upgrade for the first few weeks slots like bracers, belts, boots, that are kind of lower stat budget. As long as you kind of stick to that rule of thumb, even if you're not doing the full min-max of getting your 10 worms and 10 aspects per week, you're still gonna profit phenomenally off of this, and you're still gonna have more crests than you need in less than a month.
Yeah. In addition to that, there's a question of like, when should you craft gear? When should you spin the Shadow Flame Crests? And the answer to that kind of depends. If you are probably the most hardcore relevant min-max player, first off, you're probably not watching this video, but say you are, it's whenever you're actually starting to do progression. It's whenever you're standing in front of, I guess, whatever the Mythic Taros equivalent was of last tier, where Taros was very difficult week 1. As you got gear, it became quite easy. And then obviously as it got quite easy for like cutting edge level raiders, right? Like the most hardcore players is what I mean. It wasn't like easy, but once you got to that gear threshold, the boss became significantly easier. I think that is what you use it on if you're trying to min max the most. If you're not, like Dratnos said, you're going to be flush with these in a month. It's not that big of a deal. Kind of just spend it on whatever you think is going to be the largest damage upgrade, like the weapons, the trinkets that he was stating. And do it whenever you're like, if say you're a Mythic Plus only player, you can honestly just slam it early and just try to get the highest level keys done that week, because it's going to make your keys easier.
Right. That's the thing, is like this system, you will cap out on power with it pretty early. So
yes,
if you try and min max it too much and that leads to crests sitting in your bags, that's a fail. You want to avoid crests sitting in your bags unused, because every week you get 10 new ones. If you're earning actually all 10 of them, you will run out of things you need to do with them very quick. So it's better to use probably a good else of them now rather than wait for a perfect use of them next week, because next week you'll have enough crests that it won't matter anyways, probably.
Yeah. Anything else that we kind of need to discuss?
I guess final tip for super min maxers is that just make sure you're considering the aspect to worm downgrade. That definitely might be worth doing a couple times in these first few weeks. So just be aware of that option existing. And I think if the system sounds overwhelming to you, just try to remember, you can't really get screwed. If you're doing really high keys, don't upgrade from 421 to 431 if it costs you crests. Only do that once you've got the crest discount unlocked.
Cool. All right. That's going to be it for us this week. We will, I think, be on a couple of week hiatus. There's going to be more content on the GG WoW channel, but
daily recap Race to World First videos should be on the way here. So that'll be our
tier
content
lists
for the bit. Some tier list content. Yeah, that's off in the shop right now, in the editing shop. So we'll see when that all gets polished and sent out.
There's a trivia show that
I don't know when that's coming out either.
Yeah, we're kind of leaking, but we're not leaking the results. We're just leaking that it's coming. All right. We're gonna have content on the GG WoW channel. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.